Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the JT Jorfi podcast. Today, my guest is Jen Todd, and she is the co-founder of Evolve Wellness. So thank you for being on the show, Jen.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
yeah, great to see you again. And maybe you could start off the conversation with how did you get involved in the wellness space? Was this something that you always had a personal interest in, always a professional interest in? What was kind of your path to getting where you are?
Sure. I guess so in my teens I was a big yogi. So, 5 times a day and super involved. I started a corporate yoga class for my bank. Then they kind of shut down the budget and then I started at Bayfront Park Yoga with my first yoga teacher, which became super popular and I was like, wow, like people are really loving the yoga. But at that time, it was really just a personal interest. I was reading all the books. Buddhism was like an interesting topic for me. I remember my family was like, why is she reading all these books? So then, kind of fast forward probably, I don't know, 15, 20 years. I was working at Morgan Stanley and had the opportunity to step out to support a cryptocurrency fund, helping them with business development. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But like the opportunity was amazing, but wasn't quite like matching my salary. So I was at a law council meeting in Miami Beach Chamber, and I met the founder of a meditation studio called Energy. His name was Paul Salitsky. And I approached him pretty much to like pitch him on, some investments or something like this. And he was like, okay, no, but like I could use someone like you at my meditation studio to help with corporate and community. And I was like, okay. Like at the time, my girlfriend owned a yoga studio. So I was familiar with the concept, but had never really worked in that space. So I was there for a couple of years and just like felt so at home and felt myself learning so much. Right. So like just being in that as a work container was like, whoa, like I was learning meditation and how to be quiet and quiet the mind and what is awareness. And these were things in my yoga practice that just never came into play. I was like downward dog, like, all day long, but I didn't really think about like the mental piece or even like beyond the mind. So that was really mind opening for me and kind of like what really opened this path for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you notice that as like kind of through your work and maybe the clients and students that come through the classes, that kind of corporate to more of a mindfulness type of experience is kind of in demand? Like there are a lot of folks that you interact with that you're coming to you that kind of traditionally more in the corporate world and like kind of looking for something a little bit more, a little bit different than their day to day. Are you seeing kind of that trend and that move?
Mm-hmm. 100%. So it's interesting because folks are either staying in their corporate but wanting to balance a little bit, right? With something in the evenings or the weekends or like helping out on a project as a volunteer or, an advisor to help support their balance. And then some of us, when you kind of like zone into your purpose and mission, it gets really challenging to not be in that space. And so I think that's when you start to see like the jumps, right? Like we've got to be here. Like how do we everything that we learned in corporate and our skill set, how can we apply that now to the wellness so that we can fund ourselves, right? Because it's a big part of it. It's like, yeah, wellness is amazing and meditation's amazing. Yet I've seen, there's somewhat of like I don't want to there's some scarcity there, like in the money. Like it's either like the people are creating it or it's just part of the industry. And so you kind of have to break through that. And so to break through that, you need to do the work. Right. So it's kind of like this like juggle balance. It's like, you're capable, but you don't know enough to actually make it happen. And I found myself in that position. I was like, I know I'm supposed to be here, but I can't seem to make the money to be here.
Right.
So that's when it comes into like actually doing the meditation, doing the mindfulness. What do you need to focus to succeed? So I think that's kind of how that path is unfolding for folks, for myself and those in my network.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I mean, the way I kind of look at it too, like a lot of the mindfulness, meditation, like, yogic practices and things like that, they're not really centered or based on a more like transactional nature or like a capitalist system. Like it just doesn't really seem to jibe with like, okay, I want to make a career out of being, you know, a meditation instructor or like a yoga teacher. It just seems like the kind of foundation that it's built on like doesn't necessarily consider that as like any part of some sort of like business model. So like how have you maybe thought about that, like thought about different plans, seen other folks have success with being able to pay the bills in a, you know, in a society where you have bills to pay and deadlines and credit cards and mortgages and things like that. Like, do you see them being almost like mutually exclusive where you kind of like have to have more of like a stable in the real tangible world like desk job type thing, or are folks like kind of able to make that transition and still kind of maintain a semblance of like the normal lifestyle?
Love it. So I think a lot of that is folks coming together, right? So, just like in the corporate environment, the network is so important. So there, there are different communities in wellness, different companies in wellness, and some have like broken through, right? And so in the course of 6 years when I was consulting, I did work with a couple of wellness companies. One was called Homecoming. They're incredible, basically created platform like a SaaS model for folks to communicate with their clients through this platform. And then Elixir, same concept as Evolve in that they support the wellness leaders or creators, but they get the content out to the world like through recordings. And so I was like, okay, if I'm not yet in the position to make X amount through Evolve, how do I find something that's very aligned with the mission? And so that really sustained me for 6 years when I was kind of between two corporate jobs. And so I was juggling a couple of corporate clients, making some money through Evolve, but not yet enough. So I think that coming together and forming somewhat of an ecosystem
Mm.
is really important. And then knowing that it is possible to make that money, like breaking through any limiting beliefs that we might have and utilizing all those skills from corporate to make money and in the connections. So like
Mm.
my plan now as I'm stepping out of corporate recently back into the evolve space is, I have this kind of thought that came to me, bring consciousness to money and money to consciousness. And it's funny because I know we talked about this before, like everyone is conscious. It's like, yes. And so why can't this happen? Right? Like the people in, let's say, Brickell Avenue working these jobs, they really want this. They want it. And so it's just a matter of finding the way in to bring it to them, either through their office or through their personal time. And then, same thing, then bring that money to the hypnotherapists, to the growth mindset experts, to the awareness coaches that may not be able to like kind of penetrate that market on their own. Do it under the umbrella of something like Evolve, where they have more support.
Mm.
And so that's really where I'm wanting to put my energy now, focused on the finance industry, because I've seen that the luxury goods market, they're ripe and ready for us. And so if you think about it, like the high net worth advisors are managing the client portfolios, and these clients are, they're shopping at like Prada and Miu Miu and staying at Four Seasons, and all of these luxury brands are bringing in the wellness. So it's kind of like we got to match, right? We got to help the advisors and the asset managers match where their clients are going, and that feels really relevant to me.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of find where there's already maybe structures or like inroads in place to have people like, you know, like you're saying, these clients of financial services have the means to be able to pay for these services that exist out there. It's just like, how do you get to them? How do you get in front of them, educate them that these things even exist? And it sounds like you're kind of building that out through your Evolve platform as you describe kind of the ecosystem and community around that. So maybe you could talk a little bit about kind of how would you describe like what that platform is? Like how have you gone about building it? Like what is Evolve in your words?
Hmm. Love it. So over the last 5 years, I think what we've done really well is attract top wellness facilitators and humans, right? Like the people are incredible. And it's part of what triggered my move out of corporate. We were randomly, Prada wrote us an email from New York City, the marketing director, and she was like, we need talent in Miami. We're doing these VIP client events at Bal Harbor and in the design district. Can you get me talent? And I was like she's like astrologist, matcha maker, like hand massage, meditation. I was like, oh, 100%. Like I've got the talent. And so that was pretty eye-opening because like they're all on my like WhatsApp. It's not like
Mm,
challenging. It's like, hey, Monique, we need an astrologist at Prada this day. Can you be there? She's like, 100%. And so I feel like what we've created is that. And it's almost like we're ready, like
mm,
when these opportunities come up, we're ready. So I would like to kind of like create more opportunities instead of just waiting for them to pop in
mm,
my inbox. And that to me is like the wellness talent agency arm of the company. And then the second arm that we're developing now is the kind of more corporate going into the financial services industry. So we've chosen from the 150 facilitators, 6 to be like kind of the base instructors or teachers, facilitators for corporate. And really like it's funny because I'm talking to a couple fund managers and they want like the big name speakers, like they want Brendan Burchard and like Tony Robbins. And I'm like, well, of course I could get them for you. I mean, it's just like it's a speakers bureau, like a call and I find out their price and we make it happen. But that to me is like one thing. That's like if Morgan Stanley does a 500-person conference, like yes, we're going to find you the best guy and I'll have a curated list and be able to do that. But really what I feel inspired to create is these coaches, they're kind of like gems, like hidden gems. People wouldn't know about them unless someone told them. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
But they've helped me on my personal path. And so to me, it's like I've done all this homework, homework has been so fun, but to find these people, let me present them to you and share with you like how they help me. So like in my initial work, I learned about awareness. So, in the mind, there's all the things going on. And if you imagine like a cord, let's say this is a TV behind me, and you could see all my thoughts. So when I start to see all my thoughts, I can shift my thoughts. Right. So that's really what I started doing 5 years ago, like playing with all of this. And this is all in the conscious mind. And then I learned that 80% of our decisions are made from our subconscious mind. So I was like, oh, never tapped in there. I have no idea what's there. I'm a little bit nervous, but like, let's do it. And so I did a lot of work with Lauren Romero, one of our top hypnotherapists, Irina on the awareness coaching side. So it's kind of like this recipe that over 5 years I've created that I think can help a lot of people. So the
mm.
corporate programming is kind of around this, like kind of awareness, subconscious work. And then you move more into the learning to focus and grow and perform, right? Because until you kind of like have these baselines covered, it's challenging. Like unless you're working in like some robotic way, to be aware of what you're doing and doing it really in a structured way, I think it helps to have the foundation.
Yeah, it sounds like almost like you're curating like a wellness, maybe like regimen or pathway
Mhm.
for whoever's coming to you. So like maybe someone who's never heard of awareness, consciousness exploration, or never been to a yoga class, or never considered, Buddhist or Eastern thought, you might start them with something like very basic, or maybe they're more like physiological, where like something like breath work would resonate better because it's less, thought based and less philosophical and more like in the body and experiential. Is that kind of how you've approached maybe dealing with folks that are popping into your inbox? And maybe how do you see like maybe easier steps into this world of wellness for clients coming to you that maybe have no experience versus some that are very much practitioners in their own right?
Great question. Yeah, so the experience is 100% part of it. What we've noticed sometimes is the resistance to the experience. If you remember from energy meditation, the sound bowls were very popular. And I think like that's a great place to start. I've never really had anyone say no to sound bowls. Like it's like Just like lay there and receive and like just like it's like amazing. So yeah, I think that and like quicker practices are interesting because when folks are so in the mind, it's really tough. And I know because I've been there, I'm still there sometimes. I'm like, teach me something. Like my mind needs stuff. And I think a lot of times in the corporate environment, that's where folks are. So it's like meet them where they're at, but
Hmm.
then as they start to soak in this information, they'll crave and want the practices because they'll know that they need to quiet the mind, but kind of like reach them through the mental layer of the being. Feels like an interesting path, at least on the corporate side. I think sometimes the beginners that come in, like when they came into the meditation studio or when they pop in now on Inbox, or they'll kind of know, like feel somewhat called to a practice, and just want a referral to someone that's like really amazing. Like I want to learn to meditate, who can help me? Or like I've heard about yin yoga, which is another one that we're really focused on now. Like where can I practice this? So yeah, I think it's kind of like connecting them with the one person or two people that it's like a personality match in a way that can help guide them on their path.
Yeah, yeah, you sound like a matchmaker of sorts,
Matchmaker,
bringing together,
exactly.
yeah, two sides that would benefit from each other. How do you go about finding, the practitioners or the instructors? And you mentioned hypnosis, astrology, yoga. Where are you kind of discovering these people?
So all either firsthand, like I find them, I do sessions, I'm like, wow, part of my journey, or a direct referral, usually from another leader, another evolve leader, and that's been the way. I think like of our 150, maybe one or two came kind of through random, just like they saw us we're talking at a panel, or they came to our event during our Basel. But in general, it's been very networked, which I love. Which I
Yeah.
love.
Yes, you mentioned Art Basel. Obviously, happens in Miami. It's one of the largest art festivals in the world. Have you, I guess, seen Miami as being maybe more receptive to this type of modality, kind of building that community? I know that when I lived down there, I was impressed, and I didn't really realize that it was such a strong community of folks, kind of on a more spiritual, holistic wellness path. Maybe you can kind of describe what you see as the culture of it in Miami.
Yeah. I think what I love here is like there's so much. And so, on any given day, there's like, I don't know, five events or more. And so then it's a matter of like figuring what feels good to you in that day, right? And so
Hmm.
sometimes I laugh because, is a glittery city. So some of the events, I call it like healing in heels. Like you have to look good to go.
I love that.
Yeah, like Faena or something. And like
Yeah.
I can't always go to those because I tend to wear like sweatpants and old t-shirt. Like I'm not always fancy, but like when I want to be, my God, like take me to Faena, let's go. And so, Miami has all of it. And I think there's a different like community feel for everyone. The practices are getting, I think, deeper and deeper here. I have quite a few friends in LA, and I learned through them that LA has like, wow, like you're hitting next level work there.
Hmm.
And I think Miami's starting to get there because folks are moving here. Some of the new leaders that moved to Miami, they tell me they're like called to come. And I'm like,
Hmm.
wow, like how lucky are we to be in this city where folks like literally are like sitting in meditation and it's like, go to Miami.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's really just something for everyone.
I wonder if that has anything to do with the climate. Because you mentioned LA too. It's like kind of nice weather
Right.
year round. Miami has nice weather year round. Like, do you think that plays into why folks are maybe more open to that type of stuff? Just because like they're in a better mood?
Yeah. And I guess because it's like a year round, like we don't have that hibernation period. So, evolution is like this. You don't want to stop. So it's kind of nice. Like you're like always like, and I believe that the evolution is really supported through human connection, right? So if
Hmm.
we're hibernating for a few months, it's great because we can go within. But sometimes like an insight comes up or something comes up and you want to go talk to people, go sit in a circle or so yeah, it could be. And definitely the weather is supportive. They always have like the beach yoga and like there's just so much happening outside. And meeting on Tuesday with an investor who's focused on wellness activities but in nature. So
Hmm.
I think that that weather piece falls like plays a big part in it because there's something about just being in nature, like as you're practicing or taking a
Hmm.
walk that really is supportive.
Yeah, it's like nature is the ultimate healer that we're all learning from anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, with with all the hotels in Miami, tourism is pretty big driver, and a lot of folks that are in Miami Beach, especially on a given day, are tourists. Have you seen kind of them come through like through your platform of interest of like vacationers trying to kind of get experience in practices that they haven't done before?
Yeah, this is a really good question. It's, our friend Matt Boney with Vacation. We've kind of visioned this, yet never followed through. So, like, let me take a note right now.
Yeah.
Because it's funny. I met a guy. I was at the Carillon for a meeting, which is, a nice beach hotel, and he was listening. He was listening to my conversation with another leader.
Eavesdropping?
Uh, yeah, he was totally eavesdropping. He was sitting next to us. I saw him in Publix after, this guy, and he's like, I couldn't help but like your conversation was like, whoa, what is all this that you're talking about? He's like, I'm on this journey, but it sounds like you're like 10 steps ahead. Like, how do I tap into this? Like, can we do a call? Can you meet me at the Carillon? Can you coach me? So I think it's interesting, right? Because if you are like a kind of coming here on spiritual tourism and you have like 1,000 facilitators in Miami, we are ripe and ready to support people. So yeah, I haven't, but I will, JT.
Yeah, all good. And maybe you could like describe like a typical like experience or what someone might expect if they're someone new coming onto the Evolve platform. That maybe not necessarily sure what they're looking for. Maybe it's a meditation coach, like you said, an awareness coach. Like, what would maybe like a type of experience that they might be able to sign up for? What would that like end up looking like?
Sure. So when we first created Evolve, it was only virtual group sessions. So we definitely have that. That was like our bread and butter for a couple of years. So we list sessions like that we create kind of at the Evolve level. And then the Evolve leaders are also invited to list their sessions. So any given month has like 5 to 10 sessions that we kind of curate. We offer a session monthly at the Standard Hotel, which is, we've been there now 2 years and looking to start a third year. So that's always a great place to get together to kind of balance that because that's one of the fancier places. We started doing a monthly session in either a studio or someone's home. So it's more community donation based to kind of create more access. So I think, the group sessions are incredible. Now we have the in-person groups there and the virtual groups. But I think what else is cool, like you can just go on there and search by modality. So if you wanted meditation or sound, you put modality sound, and then you'll get back in the results, like let's say 5 facilitators. And from there, you could just email them or they have their booking link. And so you can get to know them. We also offer kind of like concierge service, like you write to the team and say, like, this is what I'm looking for. Can you help me? Like, and then I'll send them, 5 profiles of who I think would be best and can help make the connections. So, a lot of I think that really is at the end of the day, like what can really serve people, right? It's kind of like, you can find them yourself, yet sometimes it's helpful to talk through what really you want to work on and have someone on the other end guiding.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like the guidance aspect is super helpful if someone's coming in completely, I guess, not knowing what they're looking for to begin with, and kind of ask them some questions, figure out what they might benefit from, and then point them in the right direction. Would it be kind of similar? You mentioned you're doing like corporate wellness programming and things like that. Is that like a kind of a similar experience where they would talk to somebody on your side and then just determine like what are some things that corporations are actively looking for and actually providing for their employees these days?
Exactly. So I just had to call one of our leaders, Dana Harvey's in Vancouver, and we were chatting about that very simple, like mindfulness meditation 101 that we did at Energy Meditation. And that to me is like, okay, here's a nice starting point. It could be for mental health month or for the assistants or, for the executives, just like give a baseline feels really important for corporate. And then from there, see kind of what their core values are, like what is the company focused on at a
Mm.
whole level, and then work backwards as to what would make sense to deliver to their
So
yeah.
are you going like in person to these offices, or are you kind of doing virtual there as well? Like what, I mean, like what kind of response are you getting?
So we're focused on the in person for now. What I learned when I was at Raymond James is that there are lunch and learns, right? Like throughout the industry, nonstop. It's like a few times a week, like someone comes in and presents, and then the advisors are learning and listening, and then everyone goes back to work. But there's opportunity there to like drop in for whatever 10, 20 minutes like before the financial services like speaker talks to help people drop in, right? Like kind of like refresh on their day or teach them some skill how to integrate this. Like if you're going to learn all this finance work, how do you actively listen to your clients, right? Like you don't just want to like sell products, like you want to listen and say like what do you need, client? So I think that's what we're most inspired to do, and that would be in person primarily to start. There's tons of corporate work virtual. I know this, yet I feel like the in person is just so beautiful if we can create that.
Yeah. Was the primarily being virtual, you mentioned that was kind of like your bread and butter. Was that a result of like kind of pandemic lockdowns and just not the ability to meet in person? Is that why that first started?
Exactly. So when Irina, my co-founder, Irina Vlada, came to Energy, we were like so excited. We were like, okay, she was going to come in and be the new owner of Energy. And then 3 months later, the city was like, you guys need to close down your doors. And we had, I think, 200 members at that point. So it was
Mm.
really confusing when we tried to put all the teachers on Zoom and send the members links. And it was just like, so now with Evolve, you put up the group session. If someone signs up, they get the Zoom link, they get a reminder before, they get something after saying leave a review. So it kind of like it was literally created for that. Yeah, and I think with the corporate, the thing about using Evolve for this, we're going to have to dive in and do more programming because all of the groups are now public. Meaning, if like a Raymond James created a private group session for their corporate, like you could see it, you'd like jump in, and then there you are on Raymond James's corporate session. So we're not quite like there, but I would love to be because it's just going to happen. And also like some of our top facilitators are in Canada or LA, so would hate to like not bring them to say a Miami company if the opportunity came up.
Actually, kind of, you're mentioning that it sounded like more like a technology challenge that you've faced. Maybe you could talk about as you've grown the business, as you've grown the platform. What are some of the hardest things that you've encountered, the challenges with technology or with staff or with any of the trials and tribulations of an entrepreneur? Maybe you could tell a couple of stories around that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm having tears come to my eyes. God, it was
PTSD.
so intense. It's like, whew. So Matt Boney's vacation team was our first development team. And, at that time during the pandemic, the hotels were shut down. So they were like, well, we're not doing any development. So we're ready and available. So they built our MVP, the iOS version. And that was like so smooth. Like we just knew each other. It was like on Slack and Zooms and Figmas, and they helped and guided us. It was like, wow, this is fantastic. But then the pandemic was over. They're like, we love you guys, and they'd warned us, so it wasn't a surprise. But they're like, we need to go back to the hotel industry. And I was like, okay, so now what? So, then we jumped around we had a development team in the Ukraine, then another development team in the Ukraine, and then in the end, thankfully, we found this gentleman that's helping us now out of Colombia. His name's Christian, and he's like, oh, he's an angel, and he's been supporting us through this time. But I became with, I mean, I'd helped my Adam, my ex-husband, with a couple of startups. So I was the number two in startups, and I was involved somewhat on the technology side. But this time I was pretty much running like the PM side. Like I was writing tickets and talking to the developers every day with Irina. We had Andrei Savchenko there on our calls supporting us as our tech advisor because we were like, we're two females here that don't really have that much background. So we were just very supported. And thankfully the tech teams we hired, they did a great job. We were at one point we were spending like $13,000 a month in development, and we had 4 or 5 people, and it was wild. And those are the weeks where I didn't sleep because you're like, if I'm spending this much money on tech, like I need to make sure it's happening as it should. So there was the QA component, everything, like launching the iOS version and then the web version and then making sure they match. And yeah, it was a whole thing. And thankfully, knock on wood, it's all working. So all of that,
Yeah.
really was huge for us as a growth, right? Like now we're like tech people.
Yeah. Made it through the other side much smarter and more prepared. Were there any things that you maybe would have done differently in hindsight?
Yes, 100%. And I teach anyone that comes to me wanting to start a project, I'm like, okay. They're like, I need a developer. I'm like, no, you need to sit there and create your Figma frames. Like, get your Figma frames 100% done. You can hire a designer, do it yourself, but like be super clear on what this thing is going to do. Because sometimes we would like kind of create them, but not really. And then we develop, like overdevelop, and then have to like wipe things. I mean, it was a lot of, not to say a lot of waste, but there was definitely enough that was like it could have been avoided. So that's something that I always
Yeah, get really clear on the kind of workflow and the UX UI of what the end result you want to be before you start coding things.
right. And talk to people.
Mm.
Like, it's taken us this like 5 years to kind of figure out like people don't really like, maybe during the pandemic they really wanted the virtual, but now they're not really that interested. So like, talk to people as much as you can before you like make the virtual perfect after the pandemic's over. You know what I mean? So like those conversations with folks that are potential like users or leaders or whichever is really important too.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of what the customers want, what have they shown most interest in? Like what have been some of your more successful either modalities or events?
Love that question. Hypnotherapy has always been big, especially when we add like for abundance or to manifest or something like this. That's been great. The sound sessions in person have been really helpful. Astrology is like more on like the one-on-one. Folks really like that. We've done like collective readings, which are cool and well attended, yet I feel like the depth of it is in the one-on-ones. What else? I think like when people come to me just like not sure where to go, a lot of times we'll start with something like awareness coaching, and I think that's been like that's when people come back say, "Wow, that like changed my life." Yeah, so those are some of the modalities. Breath work obviously is like huge now, very important. Psychedelic integration, we kind of dived into that space a few years ago and have quite a few facilitators that support with that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, we mentioned the awareness coaching a couple of times. Could you maybe share your experience and kind of what that's all about?
oh, I would love to. Yeah, so when I met Irina when she was coming in to purchase energy, we met at a coffee shop here in Miami Beach, and she handed me her card and it was like awareness coach in gold. And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "What is that? I need one of those." So I worked with her for 3 months, and some of the exercises that she took me through just to this day I rely on. And one of the first was to establish my core values, which like as a kid, my mom, I would always hear her say like, she has no values, or like, oh, she had values or something. And I never knew what she was talking about. Like, had no clue. And so I sat there with a list of like 100 potential values as part of a worksheet with Irina. And she's like, circle all the ones that resonate. And I was like, boom, 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 and like pulled them together. And then for me, it was like connection, freedom, community, family, all of this. And so then what she teaches is that you start to make decisions based on your values. So like imagine like, your eyes are looking through this house that has like windows that are your values. So you know, part of why I came back to Evolve was like I wasn't feeling in my values in my 9 to 5 job. Like I wasn't connecting that well. I didn't feel like I had like the freedom to create and to be and to use my strengths. And so I sat there with my values sheet and I was like, I gotta go. Like I'm not in alignment. And a lot
Mm.
of times when people say they're out of alignment, that's what they're not aligned with is their values. And before that point, I never had I never had a list. So I was like, I was just floating around, just like had nothing to anchor me.
Hmm.
So that was one exercise. Another one, like I tended to like, have these ups and downs with like mood and things. And so she had me write a happy list, which was so cute. It was like, write a list of the 50 things that make you happy. And at that point, I wasn't my happiest. So I'd be like, that's a huge list. Like, I cannot think of so many things. And she's just like, she made me. And so it'd be like palm trees and candles and bubble baths. And she's like, do you have any candles? I was like, no, they're expensive. I'm not buying them. She's like, do you have bubble bath? I was like, ew, no, it's not organic. I don't want to sit there with like I purposely hadn't surrounded myself with things that made me happy. So of course I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
It was like kind of like just very eye-opening, the awareness of what makes me happy and the
Mm.
awareness that I didn't have any of these things. And like, oh, okay, well, now maybe I have an opportunity to be happier. So, like, those are a couple of the exercises, but the awareness in general. So, since then, like, I've been very focused on awareness because I'm like, it kind of changed my whole perception of life and myself. One thing I knew that I wanted to share today, I've been reading this book. It's called Unwavering Focus by Don DePani. And he speaks of, you know, he's like, don't even try to focus on things because, like, now I'm like entrepreneur again. I'm like trying to manage my time and where do I focus my energy? I'm so confused. I'm pulled in this direction. And he's like, focus comes when you are aware of where you are in your mind. And so he kind of walked us through an exercise in the book of imagining your mind like a mansion and you have different rooms. So we were just talking about happiness. So imagine you're in the happiness room and you're like, wow, this is great. Like I'm in there, like this is fantastic. I got my candles and my bubble bath. I'm like high on life. And then like, you shouldn't do this in the bathtub, but let's say you do. And then you're like, oh shit, like that friend just like, did she seriously just do this? And then I'm like, then you find yourself in this frustrated area of the mind, but like it just like happens, right? But if you're aware that you're there and you're like, okay, wait, why did I let myself just go in the frustrated? Let me go back into the happy part. Like, there's nothing that says I need, like, because I got this text, why does it pull me there? And so I like at Raymond James on a Monday, my boss was like, how was your weekend? And I was like, it was great. But I didn't want to tell him the whole weekend. I was literally in my mansion mind, like playing for 2 days, like trying to see how this worked, but it did. And it's been now like a month of playing in that space. And it's pretty fantastic.
Very cool.
Yeah, try it.
Yeah. The mansion mind. Yeah, I like that. So like visualization techniques and yeah, just like kind of realizing what it is that you strive for that you think would make you happy and then kind of test it out, put yourself in that situation. Is this kind of bringing those results about? And then it's like trial and error, like kind of sounding like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you can even like the other best example, because I know a lot of us humans are doing this now. One of these talks I went to, they call this our distraction machine.
she's holding up her
And
cell
that
phone, by
just
the way, if you're listening to this.
yeah. Oh yeah, cell phone. So the distraction machine I learned from a happiness professor at Harvard at the World Happiness Summit last weekend. He said that the technology keeps us in our left brain,
Mm.
right? And there's like studies from 2009, mostly on adolescents, that their level of happiness was going down. And at the same time, the technology and all the social and all this was like on the rise.
Right.
And he said that the right side of the brain is what helps us with complex problems. One of those complex problems is meaning, and meaning is one thing that contributes to our happiness. So he kind of correlated all of this. Like, because we're constantly distracted by the devices, we're going into the left side of our brain when to find meaning and all of this, which leads to happiness, is in the right side of our brain.
Mm.
So, I find myself, in bed, like scrolling and then all this. And I have a room in my mansion mind for that. Like, it's literally like I call it like the scrolling room or something. And I played with it and I was like, okay, well, if I'm in the scrolling room, what room do I want to be in? I was like, the walk outside in the park room. And so in my mind, I put myself in that room. And then like a minute later, I found myself putting my shoes on. You know
Huh.
what I mean? It was
Yeah.
like, it was this very interesting, like transition, which usually will take me like hours. I'll be like, I should go on that walk, you know? So I don't know, play with it and let me know, JT, because it's really been like the last month or two is like, wow, it's like awareness part two, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's something I think what sounds like would be the most challenging part would be catching yourself. Like then if you're in the scrolling room, like having the awareness that you're in the scrolling room rather than just like kind of just being so in it that you never really think about what you're really even doing.
Right.
So I will try.
What? Remember once you and I were with Mike Danheim and he was like, are you aware? Remember? He was like, are you aware that you're aware?
Yep.
So it's like that, but we're
Yeah.
getting there. We're getting there.
And that's yeah, and that's the practice. That's the journey of
Mhm.
just every day trying to be present.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're getting close to time here, but wanted to give you the opportunity to leave us any last words or any kind of plugs or promos, anything's coming up where people can find you moving forward.
Amazing. Well, I'm always happy to hear from anyone to support, guide, technology, awareness, coaches, whatever folks need. And Evolve, we are global. Like, believe it or not, we're in quite a few countries. So yeah, just here to be a resource for folks as they kind of embark on this journey or continue on it.
Excellent. Well, yeah, best of luck with the continued evolution of Evolve Wellness. And yeah, looking forward to having you back on the show someday soon and talk more about what's next on the horizon. So thanks again for taking the time, Jen.
Thank you, JT. Thanks so
All right,
much.
bye, everyone.
Bye.